the seeds of transformation with the Pocasset Pokanoket Land Trust. However, before we begin, I would like to take a moment and I would like to have you guys locate yourself on this map. And we'll drop some links in the chat for this. Please consider learning more about not only the history of Indigenous people who once resided and managed the land where you live, but learn also about their present day political structures, issues, and goals. We also suggest that you learn more about the ongoing history of Black exclusion from property and farmland ownership. So please consider making solidarity work with local Black and Indigenous groups a part of your environmental and land-based work. We owe so much of what we know about how to grow food and manage land in a way that is regenerative and ecologically responsible to not only people who were here before colonization, but the people who were brought to the United States as slaves. Rather than erase them, we should honor, support, and seek justice for their descendants who have survived centuries of oppression and white supremacy. We'll drop some links in the chat for a few organizations so you can learn more about them. Just to go over a quick session on the etiquette for Zoom. As you may already know, this account is set up to mute participants upon entry. So to speak, simply press the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Please mute yourself when you are done speaking to avoid background noise and interfering with the other speakers. Feel free to use the chat feature to comment at any point during the workshop. The host will check the chat periodically during the session, and the presenter will leave time at the end to address questions in the chat. Please note that this session is being recorded. Before we commence, we would also like to show you some of our gold sponsors. This event would not be possible if it weren't for some of our great sponsors that we have here. So please take a moment to actually visit their website. These are some of our gold sponsors, and the next group will be presented as silver sponsors as well. We also going through an online auction, which has some really, really cool products here. And we will also drop links to the chat on this ongoing auction as well. So please check that out. And finally, we also have some virtual vendors, and I believe there is some discounts that we will be providing if you go through the links provided as well. So this concludes my intro here, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Ulum. Ulum will be facilitating the workshop here, and Ulum, I'll give it in your hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben. Hi, everyone. My name is Ulum Pixan, and I'm the Education Director here at NOFA Mass. And I'm super happy to be honored to be the presenter of this group of talented young people and workers with young folks. And without more to say, I want to present the first presenter, and I had the honor and privilege to work with her here at my farm. Her name is Flora Olivia Wayanuahiakikakahayaka Boiling Damon, best known as Flora Damon. And she's a sixth generation Hawaiian, born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. And she was born in 2001. Flora lived in Spain in 2012 and later moved to the US mainland to study classical singing and art. And now is acquiring her bachelor's of arts at the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD. And she has been working here with us at Global Village Farms. And I will pass it on to Flora. And I will share my screen after you say hi, Flora.
Hello, My name is Flora Damon, also Vaianuhea Hiki Kakahiaka. I'm from Hawaii, and as she said, I currently go to RISD. I suppose that I will begin. I have done lots of work with restoration and species removal previously, and I have worked a lot within my own community and through someone else who has worked on the mainland, and arrived here for college and high school. And through somebody else, I learned about Global Village and the people here. With the intention of learning more about the land, agriculture, and native plants, I started an internship for 2.5 months over the summer to assist with them and with the land and learn a bit about the culture. With Global Village, I've done mapping, minor cultural exchange, agricultural work, as well as learning about farming and land retention methods here. While doing this, I was told about how the land here, which was originally a cranberry bog, was questionably purchased many decades ago and filled in for agriculture. I was then told about the intention to return the land to its natural condition and reintroduce the cranberry to the people it once belonged to. So this is when I started working on the Cranberry Bog Restoration. And fortunately, after some preliminary research, among other things, I was able to design a plan to create the bog. So in Hawaii, we have a method of irrigation systems using auai, or our rivers that we redirect ourselves in our agriculture, specifically with taro patches in this case. The method of irrigation relies almost entirely upon gravity and the sheer flow of the river, or the amount of water in the river, in order to maintain the flow of water and the amount of water in the patches. It also requires no electricity to do so. Essentially, it takes a portion of the river into the agricultural land that we have to water the plants. And then it is redirected back into the river so that no water is wasted. The agriculture and environmental benefits of this is that it removes silt and dirt that is washed off from the land and farmland and the mountains above that would usually either clog up streams, make water less drinkable, and often kill a good portion of wildlife both in the stream and below once it reaches the ocean. But this method of agriculture uses the silt and the runoff to add nutrients into the patches and actually returns the water much, much cleaner and in better quality back into the river and improves the ecosystem around it. So this is the primary method that I've used to create the irrigation system and the cranberry bog. The other method that I used was our fish ponds. We create a rock wall within the ocean, sometimes to 2 miles wide, with free-flowing seawater out of specialized located gates. With this, we're able to control what wildlife and ocean water amounts come through into the fish pond, and also allow to grow our fish without hurting the environment or the animals that live within it. The gates are basically a mix of full gates, half gates, and barred gates, each doing different things. One completely blocks water. The second allows just everything but debris to go in. And the third one simply allows small fish that can enter and exit. But the point of this is that these gates, when we use them, is allowed to let all the animals and wildlife that's in the natural habitat and to be completely unrestricted, prevent debris or plants within the fish pond from leaving during storms, and also prevents erosion. So these two methods I've combined into a modified version that does minimal change to the original environment. I have used a mix of these in order to create the cranberry bog. With my knowledge of both of these systems of farming that do no damage to the ecosystem and in fact improve the water quality and the land around it without harming any of the wildlife, I was able to create a system of irrigation that functions correctly for the growth of the cranberries and supports the need to recreate the habitat of the bog while still retaining the functions of a farmland so that you can actually farm the cranberries. The water conditions and the berries also require very similar amounts and numbers to what I'm accustomed to working with, so the conversion from one plant to another was quite easy for me. For this particular site, for the land that I was given to work with, fortunately, it already has the earth conditions necessary to turn back into a bog, which is the peat, sand mix, and gravel layers that must be able to be flooded during the times. And the site has streams on both sides, which allows the water to go through. Essentially, my plan reroutes the river in through the patch where the land will be and the cranberries are, and allows it to flood using the gate controls, and then the excess water can go back through. The function and values of this are that it effectively grows the cranberries, it removes debris from both the water and runoff on the land that goes into the bog. It requires no electricity and minimal maintenance, meaning changes to the gate or water flow when needed to harvest the cranberries or change the amount of water when watering, and trimming pathways from which people would walk on in order to observe their own plants. It maintains the conditions of a bog, which means the wildlife is happy, and you can continue growth of peat, which is already there and rare, by sectionally growing it, or patch cycling, which is often done with other types of vegetables in order to maintain dirt quality, which will keep the natural land the way it's supposed to be. It improves the river quality and improves the wildlife habitat through environmental exchange, where the water is simply redirected. It is not taken away from the land, and it is not modified in any way, with the exception of removing chemicals sometimes. One of the more important things is that this can be constructed, because it is a Hawaiian method, with traditional or much less expensive tools, as in shovels and basic weed removal. It does not require large machinery in order to do, and requires minimal manpower in order to maintain. A patch usually of 5 acres would require 4 people over the whole year. So this is what I have planned and designed, and I've enjoyed my time planning it a lot, and it's really fun. Yeah. Does anyone have questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Flora. It's so great to have you. And now we're gonna transition to other youth, but I wanted to say thank you for sharing all your knowledge, and hopefully we're gonna send you pictures when the bug is done. And now I want to pass it to the youth at the Urban Agriculture Experience. So
there was a question for Laurel. I'm from Laurel, sorry.
Okay.
And Katiana here asked the same question. When will it be finished?
We're applying for a grant because even though it's very low maintenance and low work, we have to pay, at least some workers to do it and pass a bunch of inspections, because we are in the United States, not in Hawaii. So we're applying for a grant, but we needed all those plans and stuff that I got from Flora to get the environmental permit done. Hopefully next year. That's our plans. Okay, so Christine, I want to pass it to the, well, I'm gonna read your bio and pass it to you, and you can Or do you want me to do the youth first, the bias first?
Your choice. We're comfortable
Okay.
either way.
We'll do it the youth first. So I am happy to introduce you Rakisha Bailey, Madai Luna, Maria Herrera, and Katiana Honora are all the students at Newburgh Free Academy North Campus, where they met Christine Hutchinson and became part of our core urban agriculture program. And there it goes. Pass it to you, and I will share my screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Rakisha Bailey. I am a senior at NFA North Campus in Newburgh, New Sorry.
I can't see you.
All right, hello everyone. So I'm Madai Luna. I'm also a senior at Newburgh Free Academy located in Newburgh, New York.
Hello everyone, I'm Maria. I'm also a senior, just like Rakisha and Madai. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Katiana Honora. I'm a junior at NFA North Academy, located in New York. And we are all third years in our core agricultural program.
So our first big project was creating a in-school garden at NFA North. We took measurements, we got woods, and we built about 8 raised beds by ourselves, the Urban Act kids. Then we planted vegetables and flowers. We sold them to the teachers, and yeah, we had a grand opening, and we sold seedlings that we winter sold during the winter, and we gave a tour to the principal, teachers, and students who attended our grand opening.
The next slide.
Next slide. So those are the pictures of us basically building the raised beds and the before and after.
Next slide.
Next. Next slide, please. And this is a picture of us giving a tour to the kids at NFA North who attended our grand opening.
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Maria.
So after the first year of our core, of their completing our core class, we have 3 pathways we can take for internships, with which are also partnerships we have created over the years. And the first one is education, which is Learn to Learn, which is an organization that works with younger kids between 5 to 10 years old, and we actually teach them the basics of agriculture and how to like garden education and sometimes recipes also. The next one is distribution, which is Common Ground Farm, which a couple of us has been working in the farmers market before. We sell the products in there. We work with the customers, and we also know where like other vegetables and stuff are going. The third one is production, which is the Newburgh urban farm food, which is our mainly like a marine farm where we work like with the raised beds, harvest for the market. Yeah, and grow life. Yeah. Next slide. And the first slide is me and my day working in the common ground farm. And that's one is for Keisha. And the third picture is us in the first year of our core. Next slide. And these pictures are the Learn to Learn kids that we work with. Oh, next slide.
So usually every year we have a youth consortium, and it usually goes with the Hudson kids in Hudson Valley area. So you had the Poughkeepsie Farm Project, the Kingston YMCA Farm Project, the Green Teens, Beacon, and Kites Nets. So all it really is like we one farm usually hosts all the other youth farms, and they come in and they do a project, and we eat, and then we have fun times. That's what we do. And I think last 2 years ago, our turn to host all the farms, and we did a Shark Tanks little game. He had come up with a farm project that would be useful to all farmers. And then the project we had to do was we built a couple of raised beds filled with soil, and then and after that we ate, and we had like pico de gallo, all the stuff that we got from the farm and harvested there. And then the year after that we went to Poughkeepsie. No, it was Kingston YMCA. We went there, and they had this numbing plant that we used to make medicine. To get in a little jar and store it away for a couple of weeks. And yeah, next slide.
We also work with okay. We also work with like churches and pantries, which we donate to, and in Newburgh. so a couple of them are Deacon Jack, Cinnamon and Food Pantry, More Scares, and Meals on Wheels, which are the three main ones we donate to. Next slide. So this is a couple of partnerships that we don't need to getting the products from us. And yeah. Next slide.
So as the kids progress through, thank you. As the kids progress through the program, they have to take on more responsibility for knowing things and for using what they know to help others. In their second year, they have to do a topic study, which means that they learn about one thing that they're particularly interested in, and then they have to create a workshop where they actually teach that topic to the incoming students in the agriculture ed basics course. And then in their third year, they have to go up another level and execute a self-directed project. They actually begin planning it in the second year, figuring out what resources, human and material wise, they need, and they execute it in that third year. And next slide.
Uh-oh.
Pretty please. With sugar on top. I did, but she's not listening to me.
I'm sorry, it's just frozen. I love you, but I will make it happen.
We'll wait patiently. When we see it on the next slide, you'll actually see some of the kids engaged in their workshops that they created for their topic studies. And here it comes. There it is. So we had a workshop on winter sowing. Then we have Medea in the top right doing a workshop on seeds. And Katiana, we don't have a picture of her workshop, but she did one on watering because she thought maybe people didn't know how to water, and they didn't. And then in the bottom right, you have the second year workings toward the third year self-directed project. Next slide.
So this is our self-directed project, which is the Grand Street Garden. So this is how the Grand Street Garden looked before, like we actually got to work in it. Over the winter, we did some planning over it. Like we took inventory of the stuff. We like measurements, and we like salvaged some of the beds that were good in good conditions. And you wanna go?
So I chose this project because I didn't have space at my home to garden, and I also recognize that people in the community don't have a space to garden. So like with this space, they can grow their own foods. And we actually got this opportunity, and we took it and we started planning, and we put our plans in action. This year in March, we started working on it, and we had like a lot of volunteers. Sorry, we had a lot of volunteers. We had in the first day we had almost like 40 people who came out and they worked, and we were ahead of our schedule for the next volunteer day. Oh, next slide. All right, so this is my self-directed project, which is a seed library. I don't know if many of you people know what a seed library is, but I'll explain a little bit. So a seed library is like basically you collect seeds or donate seeds. And this year I'm so happy because we Moen actually donated seeds to our new seed library, which is located here at the Newburgh Free Library in New York. So this is how it all came out. As you can see, Miss Hutch is showing her screen right now where the seed library is. And it's not that big, but we put like so much work into it. We painted, I actually created, I don't know if you can see like the side of the seed catalog. We created those designs, me and Ed Manner and Nicole Misho, which are like, Nicole Misho is an art teacher, NFA, and Ed Manner is just like a local artist. So yeah, they helped me with this project, and I'm so thankful with them. Thank you. Next slide.
So we're going to transition from the students into a kind of a larger scope that brought all of this about. And you can do my bio now, Ulu.
I would love to do your bio. I was like, when I get to talk about my sister.
Now, it's now.
So Christine Hutchinson is the director of Our Core Inc. She's a board member of the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. He's also a board member here at Go Village Farms. And she's in the steering committee, member of the Black Farmers United-NYS State. She's a veteran teacher in Newburgh, New York. Christine relocated to the lower Hudson Valley via Brooklyn and Albany, New York in 2003. And then in 2004, she started a character of education. She has life skills community service program for teen girls since 2006. And she's been involved in food justice and self-sufficiency, and then small-scale commercial poultry farming. We spent hours and hours talking about chickens. Currently, Christine is the education coordinator for Downing Park Urban Farm, a working community farm that grows vegetables, fruits, and flowers for local residents. Christine also worked with our core and engages youth in growing and stewardship projects, food security, and equity issues, and distribution of healthy foods into their communities via coursework and paid internships. All of her projects are approached with questioning and melding of desperate ideas, tenacity towards the mission, and the weight of organizing around multiple considerations. So here it is, the magic Christine.
Hello there. So I'm going into this concept of food security and how it's really not about food. Yes, shout out to High Mowing for the donations. Thank you. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I got a little distracted. So food security is really not about food. And a lot of us here may know this, but I'll say it anyway. Food insecurity is about how commodity crops are heavily subsidized and the foods that we actually should be eating are not, how difficult it is to produce at what seems to be a reasonable cost fresh food, how we're challenged when we attempt to access local food. Food security is about poverty and discrimination and oppression, more so than it is about food itself. So let's begin. I come at this from the lens of a Black farmer. Next slide, please. And upon my entry into agriculture, I found that I was generally the only one, and you can hit enter there, or the arrow. Sorry, that was disruptive. And that's due to the fact that most of the Black landowners have been dispossessed of their land. And it begins all the way back when, I know we've all heard of like 40 acres and a mule. Some Black farmers were actually given their 40 acres and a mule, only to have it immediately taken away after one growing season, dispossessing them of their land, making them essentially homeless. And the land that they had received was returned to the people who had formerly enslaved them, which set up the system that we all know as sharecropping. It propped up the system we all know as sharecropping. And Black land loss just has accelerated over the years. Next slide, please. So from a peak in about 1914, we have lost 12 million acres of land. There are a lot of different methods that were used to wrestle that land away from Black hands. And next slide. They range from things that are at the highest levels in our federal government, USDA loans that were given to farmers in general that supported agriculture and propped up farmers in bad years were denied to Black farmers. So they didn't get loans, they didn't get the subsidies, they didn't get the support, technical assistance. Those things were not allowed, causing Black businesses, which were their farms, to fail. There was discrimination at banks when the Black people tried to get regular bank loans to support their businesses. They really often didn't have a shot. And then there's heirs property, which has had a light shown on it recently. And what happens is, due to a lack of documentation over ownership of land, or not having strong allocations as to where land is going to go, land ends up kind of up in the air with all of the heirs having equal right to it and being manipulated or coerced into selling the land. Just one person being coerced into selling land makes the entire family lose that property. Then there were false assessments that raised the they raised the tax rates on these pieces of land and caused these Black farmers to have exorbitant tax bills that they couldn't afford, can't pay them. The land is repossessed by the municipality and then often sold to the white farmers next door. Eminent domain, we all know as the government coming in and saying, we need this land for some other purpose. And among Black farmers, this happened more frequently than it did to the average farmer. And when the government made payment for that land, it generally was not at the same rates as the white farmers who also had their land taken. There's documentation of that payment being as low as 1/16 of the value that it should have been. Then there's just brute force where neighbors would physically assault and threaten Black farmers to intimidate them off of their land, sometimes going as far as to actually murder the farmers who were residing on the land, and the rest of the family would, of course, be chased off. Next slide, please. So that left these farmers in positions of becoming farm labor because that is where their skill set was. And then the government introduced this Braceros program or Bracero program, which made very lofty promises to people who lived in Mexico. There's a short list of some of these wonderful promises. Adequate housing and wages that were commensurate with what other people were earning nearby, healthy and sanitary facilities. And they made promises to American citizens that these workers who were coming in from Mexico wouldn't be replacing American workers, but they would just be there to support when they couldn't find American workers. And none of that ended up being true. The reality is there in italics. These people were brought in and fiscally undercut the workers who were there on the farms already, and they were subject to horrible conditions and abuses which continue to this day. Next slide, please. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wing it without the slides. Oh, here we go. So a lot of my point of reference is also in my home state of New York. And the numbers in New York have, I'm not sure why you can't see those numbers, or I can't see those numbers, but the numbers in New York have declined much in the same way as they have across the nation. And in 1910, there were 295 Black farmers out of over 100,000. And now there are 139. There are 139 Black farmers in New York State. Out of the millions of farmers, there are 139 New Yorkers who are Black, who are farming. It was just I can't even understand that number, 139 of us. Next slide, please. And then the farmers who remain, those 139, they don't really earn much money. And you'll see in the top left of this chart here that the annual net income for Black farmers is actually a negative number. Farming tends to put Black farmers into debt more than it does earn a living. And while a lot of farmers of every color and every origin have to work other jobs to support themselves because they can't earn enough farming, Black people are a cohort that would almost be better off not farming financially. So we have to work to change this. Everything that is an impact on Black farmers, the conglomerates, the different methods of growing with chemicals, all of these things impact Black farmers and Black farms and the farms around Black farmers at a worse rate, but they are impacting everyone. So we have to work to make changes in that. And this is where our seeds of transformation come back. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I had one more startling statistic. So this is a county that we live in. I live here and all these kids you saw earlier do. We have about 1,000 farmers here, and 13 of them are Black, and 39 of them are Latino, which is not mutually exclusive from Black, and 25 of them are Asian out of the 1,000 farmers that we have here. Thank you. Have to mute.
Wow, I just want to take a minute for you guys to sit with that history and why this work is so important. Yeah. Okay. So I guess turning the page, not forgetting what we just heard. I wanted to introduce Amanda Baraka of Uprooted and Rising. Amanda is a Boston area-based organizer of Sicilian and Palestinian descent. She's a member of Uprooted and Rising, a national group committed to targeting white supremacy and corporate control in the food system while building up an alternative system that advances for sovereignty. She's also a member of BDS Boston, a Palestinian solidarity organization that aims to end the colonization of Palestine. At her day job, she supports staff who run campaigns against transnational corporations that exploit people and the planet. So Amanda and a bunch of folks from Boston have been supporting Global Village through the pandemic and beyond. And she's gonna talk a little bit about how this support look like and why folks are supporting a small farm in central Massachusetts.
Thanks, Ilum. Honestly, I feel like the question is, how has Global Village supported us through the pandemic? It was like the only opportunity to really see people outside of our pods, and was such a gift to get to be there this year in particular. Yeah, so I think maybe just for a little bit of context of who are the folks that regularly come. About once a week, we've been trying to do to bring out a crew of people, and we're coming from different sort of organizing spaces across the greater Boston area. As Ilum mentioned, there's a bunch of us coming from a Palestine solidarity organization that's constantly thinking about displacement in that particular context. Uprooted and Rising, which does food sovereignty work, and is a lot of college students across the Boston area who are really focused on running campaigns to shift the way universities are a major factor in upholding the big food sort of corporate system and gentrification, and making decisions about land use, and trying to leverage their power to do some cool things in this area and across the country. And then there's a third group that's just like focused on sort of just orienting generally around anti-colonial work, and interested in really building up the alternatives and kind of like creating a network for independent mutual support for each other outside of the nonprofit industrial complex, the disaster industrial complex, and all that good stuff. And we kind of knew each other through Boston area organizing. And last spring, was it? I don't even know. What is time? We were interested in connecting with area farms. And there's a lot, right? Like there's a lot of like small farms across New England, but we were really interested in, I think sort of like Ruben was saying this in the introduction, figuring out how we can be honoring and supporting and seeking justice for Black and Indigenous people. And it feels very clear that Global Village is oriented in that way and thinks about land in a different way from like I don't know, like white land ownership stuff. So we were excited about getting to meet you, Ulum, and showing up for the work that you all are coordinating. And what do we do? I don't know. I feel like Flora had an amazing presentation on this like really interesting, intricate stuff about creating a bog. And I'm like, we come, we pick weeds, we do whatever sort of seems like it would be useful for the day. Some of the projects, you know, have been more focused on like building stuff, carpentry. Some of it's just been like getting our hands in the dirt and doing whatever seems like it would be useful for the day. And I think it's been a really, you know, maybe that sounds a little bit mundane, but it's been a really cool way, I think, for all of us to be building up our skills in the projects that we do. And yeah, definitely has been a way that we've learned a lot and are sort of taking that home. And then I think the other part of it is just being outside together, even at a distance, and the careful ways we've been trying to do it in the past year has provided an opportunity for us to just like chill and talk and have the organizing conversations that feel like they just have a different quality than when you're on Zoom or when you're on the phone talking about like something very specific. And a lot has come out of that. I think maybe just to share a few examples of like more sort of farm related stuff. I know that some of the connections that we've built this past year has been really beneficial to some of our like urban area farms. Like I know Global Village was able to connect with folks in Dorchester who are doing some urban gardening, and like we were able to coordinate some like I'm literally forgetting my words. Like some like you shared some of your machinery, and that made like work that we would have done in Dorchester infinitely easier. And that was pretty cool. And we also just through our conversations realized that Uprooted and Rising also wanted to be building raised beds for folks in our community. That's something Global Village folks have been doing in your area in Central Mass. It's an initiative, I think, a number of organizations in the Boston area, like the North American Indian Center of Boston is doing. And so just being able to come together once a week and like be picking weeds and talking about how we're doing that, where we're getting materials from, how to keep the soil healthy, has been an incredible way of learning and collaborating. And then we're also just like meeting people, right? Like I think one of the really cool things that just feels really straightforward and normal, but kind of unusual in our individualistic society right now in the US is just like swarming to wherever people need support, right? Like we met a really awesome friend a few weeks ago, and she's working on her own smaller project. And then we were able to just kind of like flock to her place, and then many hands made for like much easier work. So I think just being able to like have a consistent crew in different places also feels like it's been really worthwhile and an amazing way to get to meet people. So yeah, I don't know, that's what it's looked like. We show up, we do the things, we meet each other, we build relationships. And I think that's been a really cool way to just like really be building trust across like these organizations or these networks of people who are thinking about how we can be doing anti-colonial, anti-racist work in the day-to-day. And it's also just been very healing, I think, to be able to be outside, to be able to see each other, and to kind of like work slowly to build that kind of trust in those relationships. So maybe I'll close there and see if there's other people on the call who have been getting to participate in that. And if there are questions about our orientation around land and anti-colonial stuff, happy to talk about that too. Thanks, Ulum.
No, thank you. It has been mutually beneficial and mutually exciting and joyful. We feel like family now. So I don't know, is John in the call? Does John want to say something? Where is he? I don't have a fancy bio for John, so might be shy. It's okay. We can continue on with the conversation, and if you want to say something later, John, you're welcome to. So Christine, again, you're gonna do this piece.
Yes, this is much more of a solution-oriented conversation that we'll have now. I'm involved with an organization called Black Farmers United, and this group started based on one of our elders, Karen Washington, saying these are these issues that we share in common. Let's get together and talk about them. And then saying, okay, let's get the people who are paid to do things about issues at this table and have them listen to our concerns. And next slide, please. We began meeting in 2019, I believe, with our agriculture commissioner, which is Richard Ball. He's there in that picture. This is one of our last meetings pre-COVID. And we gathered and basically told our stories. And at this meeting, we actually were able to present solutions. And the solutions came about because we looked at the problems we had in common and said, well, how can we address them? What are the things that we need in place in order to fix these things? And you can go to the next slide. These are very briefly the solutions that we came up with. Pathways for immigrant workers who come here to become actual farm owners or managers of farms, have some autonomy in their operations. Then we want to support the Black Farmer Fund, which is a relatively new organization that fills a gap in lending to Black farmers, where historically and contemporarily Black farmers cannot access capital to begin operations or to expand, keep things going, or to allow them to just exist from one season to another. Black Farmer Fund has stepped in with a different community-minded lending model, and we want the powers that be to support that. And then there is, of course, Northeast Farmers of Color, and I'll go into more detail on that later, but it's a network and a land trust. Then another solution was to create a certificate program through our land grant university, which in New York is Cornell. And we want Cornell to provide full support for students of agriculture to go through their programming to get certificated in skills that they gain on site or on farms that are run by Black people and be taught by Black people. Urban farms need support. That's where we are. And in order to bridge that gap between where we are and the larger rural farms, we need to bring farming into these urban spaces. We also need to bring farming into these spaces because it's a practical way of educating people and connecting them with food, and substantial amounts of food can be grown in urban areas. Then we ask that we be brought on as the navigators through essentially Cornell's outreach system to farmers. They have people who are hired to do this outreach, but they often turn to the 3 or 4 of the 139 Black farmers that they know and ask them to do the outreach and to make the connections and to do the communications. And instead of that, they should be hiring some of these people who are already connected with the community as navigators. Then we ask for scholarship systems similar to the federal scholarship system, which provides full scholarships to young people who will major in agriculture. We would like something like that for New York State to hone our talents and keep our talents in New York. Then data collection. There really is not much known about who these Black farmers are, how to connect with them, and how to support them. And we want better data collection on these farmers. And all of this should be part of a reflective and comprehensive plan to address all of the racial inequities in agriculture in New York. Next slide, please. So we are working on policy change, and we're also working to address some of the very real in the moment issues that Black farmers face. And one of the best ways that we're doing that, in addition to the policy change, is through cooperatives, connecting the Black farmers to each other and having us support one another. Next slide, please. Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust is a pretty unique operation, and I'm happy to have been part of it since the day it was formed. I was myself a Black farmer, a small scale poultry farmer, and I faced the most common issue, which is land access. And when I found that there was this network of people of color, first of all, which excited me, and that they also face the same issue, and someone had an idea to do something to address that issue, I wanted to jump on board as soon as possible. And I threw myself out there as a board member. So I'm really happy and proud to say I'm a founding board member of the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. Next slide. Okay, so this did come, I'm going to be really brief. I do see the time. So this came about in 2018, and I would say that I actually had the fortune of meeting a loom right around that time during one of our skill shares. And this is where the bud of this thing was really starting to kind of germinate. Excuse me, the seed of this thing was starting to germinate. Go ahead. So what we're trying to do with this land trust is to redistribute land-based wealth, meaning land ownership, into a community model. Go ahead to the next slide, please. These are the strategies that the land trust uses to not only acquire land, but to make sure that skills and support are conveyed. So there's land acquisition through donation or sales, or however it comes to be, and then linking that land with people who want to be on it, people of color. And that could be farmers, or it could be for indigenous populations who used to reside on the land or who still do, but don't have access to the full amounts of land that they did have. And the way our land trust determines how indigenous folks might interact with this land is through a policy or a protocol of indigenous consultation, which basically is just asking, saying, hey, here is this situation. How do you want to proceed? And we also are linking farmers to resources in terms of education and one another. And then there's a policy and advocacy portion as well. Next slide, please. We can go right ahead. I'm trying to bullet point this as best I can. So one of our goals in land acquisition is to have 2,000 acres within 5 years, including a large parcel for a flagship community, to have a center point where we can operate, we can model systems, all sorts of systems, not just of growing food, but of interacting with one another, of figuring out how to right whatever wrongs have been done to the land. And these models then can be dispersed onto other parcels of land that we acquire. Next slide, please. So these are the different ways that we can connect folks with the land. So we don't just want to take in land and hold it as a land trust. We also know that there are situations where the people are in one place and there is not land that's available to be held by this land trust, but maybe land can be leased for whatever purposes. So we've actually started helping to facilitate land leases. And then we have reparations and rematriation. I think we all know what reparations are. Rematriation might not be as familiar, but it is returning land to indigenous populations. Then we have land donations, people who have land and know that maybe their families inherited it, and originally they didn't come by it in an appropriate way. They know that it was taken from someone, and they want to return that land, they can actually donate land, whether it's in the here and now while they're alive, or if they want to bequeath it in a will. Then there are easements, which allow use in perpetuity for whatever purposes. And some of those easements could be cultural easements where the indigenous populations have their practices in that space. And then there's purchasing, which we're all familiar with. Next slide, please. So this is just a highlight of farmer resources. It's essentially opportunities for learning and for being supported in ways that we traditionally haven't been, having access to the resources that we've been locked out of in terms of marketing, business development, and so on. Next slide, please. And I already kind of discussed Indigenous consultation, and I'll point out now that it's in front of me that it is really about building relationships, coming to understandings about what the Indigenous people in a particular space want to see and prioritizing their needs and their rights. And next slide, final slide. So all of these things are pieces of the puzzle that are actually in progress right now. I think the reparations map, some folks may have heard of, and I'm trying to see what might be particularly familiar. I think that's probably one of the more well-known things, and hopefully if it's not, you'll go and check it out. Even if you just Google reparations map, it should pop up, and it allows small scale individual reparations to be made. You can check it out and see what that looks like. And that's NEFA. All right, I made it.
No, Amanda, you don't have to go again. It's just me trying to click out. Thank you for everything. Well, it's a lot of things in the chat. So maybe the presenters can either add the links to the organizations, or, you know, I have some of them. I will put them in there, but you guys can add, you know, and if people have questions, please either put it in the chat or ask them, take the mic off and ask your questions. I know it's a lot of people here that have questions, because I know a lot of people in here, so.
Well, I actually wanted to take the opportunity to let people know that they can actually save the chat. And since we're going to be updating the chat itself to include some contact information, you can just go over to the chat and go to the three dots where it says more and save the chat there for those who are actually going to be providing the contact information.
Thanks for that, Ruben. So it's a question in the chat from Risa, and she's asking, how do we connect? I'm in need of some skill sharing and guidance. So, I mean, you and I are connected, Risa, but so Christine email is in the chat. She's a board member of Global Village, and I know she has tons of connections and resources. But yeah.
And we have had to pause our skill shares through NEFA because of COVID. but we're looking forward to beginning them again in person. And we do have skill shares that are virtual. I know it's not the same, and I hate doing virtual things myself, but that is what's available now. But we're anxiously anticipating getting back in person. Bloom, do you want to speak to Global Village?
Yeah, I did have a whole other conversation about Global Village, but I can do a quick run around. So yeah, we're a small 52-acre farm, but yeah, we have 17 acres. They're in a land trust, very similar to the NEFA land trust, the Pocasset Pokanoket land trust, which is the folks that actually put this track together, and we have put a track together of the Skillshare with NEFA before. And yeah, we have dreams of, collective cooperative housing. We have a small cooperative farm. We have like almost an acre in cultivation.
How do I know it's remote? I'm on.
Oh, you're not muted.
It's okay. I'd love to hear the youth. So yeah, we do a lot of stuff very similar with Christine, and we share a lot of values. So I want to know who's in the house. There's a lot of farmers. I see a lot of farmers. Who else is in the house? You can put in the chat what you do. If you have questions, it's too hard to have this conversation without interaction.
All right, I just want to say something. Like, if anyone has like any questions about the seed library that I made, I'm here happy to give you some answers. And like, if anyone wants to donate any seeds, I know how Moen already did. I see Paul who's here. Thank you for donating some seeds. So yeah.
I have a lot of seeds. I'm gonna send you some.
I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that I have some Thai basil seeds and some others. I'm an herbalist, so I focused more on herbs, medicinal herbs than food, but working towards other things. So anybody needs any herbal seeds, you can always ask me and I can see what I can find.
We actually like a lot of herbs, and thank you so much.
I actually have a question on the chat now from Anna, and it says, have you worked with local libraries to create a seed library?
Yes, I actually did. I work with Newburgh Free Library. And actually, the seed library is located inside the seed library. Inside the library, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. There's also another request here to put the link in the chat for the seed library to see what types of seeds are needed. And I guess for that question, it's the person asking the question just for contact information. Is that right, Casey?
Yeah, Miss Hutch already added the link to the seed library. It's already there. OurCore.org/NSL.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And again, like yeah, thank you for all the, the work that you as young folks are doing for your communities is important to keep doing this work. And I really admire all the work that you guys have done. It's really fun to see all the things that you might think are small, but you really make a difference and inspire a lot of us to keep doing what we do.
Thank you.
I do know that, I'm in Warren, there is an empty 70 acres next to me. I checked on the tax records, and I believe he's a gentleman in Brockton, who owns this 70 acres that's empty. I don't know if the organization would like to reach out to him. And I could definitely look up the information again. I'm driving, so I'm dark. But so there's that. And I feel like there's farmland all out here where I am in Warren. And I have 5.5 acres that we purchased in December, and this is the first year growing. And it's definitely been a little challenging, but Ulam has been there to help. And I would love to get a high tunnel up there and to grow food and donate food back. But my monetization is herbs. So, but food is my thing to donate and to grow and to learn, because I never grew food on a big scale. I may have a bumper crop I may have a bumper crop of some Cherokee black tomatoes. They're good. And Roma. But empty land out here in all sorts of ways. And it would be great to get more farmers and young farmers and farmers of color out here. I could use some people. So I'd be willing to help in whatever way need be.
Thank you, Risa. And I see that Rakesh Madai, actually Anna Mohammed, the person that had the chat before you, has also a lot of experience in community gardens in Springfield. So maybe that connection between the both of you, and she does a lot of youth work over there too. So that'll be a great connection, maybe to visit each other.
Well, I love to teach, so I have no problem donating time and teach kids, because I want the kids to learn all about the herbs. They have to have the power of the people's medicine in their hands so that they know how to treat themselves and how to grow what they need. And that's very important. So I'll check that out.
If she'll come out to New York.
Hey, Risa, would you come out to New York?
I'm actually a New Yorker. And yes, I do go down to New York frequently, and I would love to set up a time to go do some work in some community gardens. And in my goal, my dream was always to put medicinal and food gardens where people don't have that access. So in the projects, every garden should have medicine and should have food. And unfortunately, people don't always have that skill set of what herbs to use, and they get nervous because they're taught that nature is scary and that, oh, you're going to kill yourself if you eat that plant. I've eaten poisonous plants and I'm still alive. It's not something I recommend, but it was an accident. I do know other herbalists who've done it by accident, and as long as you do things safely and with a little bit of training, it works out very well. So yes, I will absolutely come and visit in New York. I'll put my email down, and whoever wants to reach out, can reach out.
Nice. We'll be happy to have you. Thank you. We'll also give you a tour of our garden.
We also have another question from Amanda on the chat, actually. This is for you, Christine. And it's on Black ownership or land ownership. Is there any support wanted from people outside of New York for any of the strategies you mentioned before in your talk?
Absolutely. Several things come to mind, but the one that is right at the front is there is right now an open comment period with the USDA on some legislation that is being contested, and comments are open to everyone. And a way of being supportive is actually going in there and making comments, not being intimidated and thinking this is only for politicians or professionals. Regular everyday folks can actually speak to our government. And I'm going to go and find a link and share it here. And my email address is already there. So you can definitely contact me by email, and I'm going to send the link as well momentarily.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug for NOFA Mass. And yeah, we have our policy director here, but we do a lot of policy education and policy action. And this is something that is, it's important for all of us. We all eat. So having a local food system that is equitable and yeah, it's part of the work. So you can always reach out to our policy department and yeah, become a NOFA member. It's a sliding scale, so you can choose what you can. We have a lot of support for folks, and we're really working in our equity statement, and not just as a statement, but also as an equity work. And yeah, support your local farmer, get to know your local farmer. And yeah, it's a lot of work to get done, but we just have to do it.
I just shared, I'm sorry, Olum.
Yeah, I see it.
I just shared the link where you can go to make your comments. If you want any guidance in how to make the comments, because the directions are absolutely confusing, I can provide that if you email me. And take a few minutes and look at the comments that already exist in that space. And what you'll see is there are a lot of people who are speaking out against the recent USDA efforts to make things righter, not right, but righter, with farmers of color. I think, I'm not sure how well known it is, but there was an effort to relieve Black farmers of USDA debt. And before they could even make a move in that direction, they were sued by white farmers who said it was unfair and so on. So a lot of folks from that camp are already making comments, and it's important to have more voices from the right side, the correct side, the just side.
Thank you for that. Any more questions? If not, I'm pretty sure is a lot of announcements Ruben have before we leave.
Actually, not too many. Just one last thing that I wanted to share with you all. There is a survey that I would like for each one of you to actually fill out. This would actually help with bringing you this type of content and actually helping with improving the content that we're bringing you. So very important. I'll drop it in the link or the chat rather.
I just put it in there, Ruben. Oh,
yep,
there you go.
Sorry. Thank you. But I do want to take this moment too and thank all the presenters. This was actually very eye-opening and sobering. And a lot of the good work that's being done there, especially with the youth, it does bring me some hope. So keep up the great work, you all. And let's see what else here. And we're going to leave this open for a little longer too. I would like for people to get an opportunity to save the chat. Also write down any information if they want to do it that way too. So let's just leave this open here, and also open for questions too, if anybody has any other questions. We have a couple more minutes left.
Yeah, and with that, I really want to appreciate the interpreters. This is the first time we have a whole track interpreted, and I know we all speak super fast, and it was a lot of information, so a lot of love to the interpreters. Well, I really want to appreciate everyone that took Thursday afternoon here with us. Thank you very much to all the panelists and everybody in the background that made this conference possible.
Could I ask one quick question of Christine?
It's all you, sister.
Christine, have you all started working with any housing development, say with a housing authority in Poughkeepsie or New York City or I think Kingston?
I have helped a little bit with what Scenic Hudson is doing in Poughkeepsie. They put in a community garden and are starting a small urban farm. So I did go and give them some input that hopefully was valuable. And there is a project underway that I can't really say anything about yet. But an organization that is going to do some incredible locally based development would like to incorporate growing space and some other usable space in there for some of the programs that we're supporting. And we should know in like a month if it's going to happen, and then I'll talk about it.
Okay, well, I'll be looking forward to that.
Me too.
Hearing more about that. I asked because one of NOFA's programs that I work with, it's a youth urban gardening program in Springfield at a housing development on a quarter of an acre that the youth run and maintain, and it's matched with a bioremediation project at another site within that housing development that's sponsored by MDAR. So I was just curious how you all do your programming with local housing agencies.
Yeah, we haven't been able to integrate thus far, and our growing spaces are an urban farm that sits on an acre that used to be part of a park. Then the kids have space right here at the library, between the library and an historic church. And then we operate in some school gardens within our district. And we actually are looking forward to having our own urban farm space. We're working actively toward that.
Okay, very good work. Very good work.
Thank you.
Gives me something to inspire our youth.
Yeah, we can all use inspiration.
That's the truth. Thank you for that.
Okay, so we're gonna stop the recording and give our good nights, and I hope to see you all at the next conference, and also probably gonna get an email from me to the NISA conference, and yeah, more education stuff.
This is wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.